This battle, which occurred after a Frankish campaign against the Muslims in Spain, Charlemagne's rearguard under Roland was ambushed by Basques in the Pyrenees.
I want to say Ronceville, but I think that might be the pass. I don't know if that's the battle. Go for it. Ronceville?
Yes, the Battle of Ronceville Pass. This brother of Charlemagne suddenly died in 771 amidst plots against him by his mother Bertrada. His wife, Gerberga, fled to Lombardy after Charlemagne annexed this man's lands.
I don't know, Lothair. Could anybody else think of any sort of Carolingian type names?
That's an answer to this. That is Carloman. Reasonably Carolingian sounding. Scores, please, after 6.
I make it 130 plays 60.
A tube containing a gas of this element was used in an experiment that proved Niels Bohr's energy quantization theory. In addition to being used in the Frank-Hertz experiment, this element is the cathode in the Kastner-Kellner process. An acetate of this element is bonded onto 2 carbon atoms in an intermediate step that is followed by the addition of sodium hydride in a reaction that converts alkenes to alcohols. This element usually forms a diatomic molecule when it has an oxidation number of +1, and this element is bonded to sulfur in cinnabar. For 10 points, name this metal that is the only one that is a liquid at
Mercury.
She dismembered her brother Apsyrtus and scattered the pieces to escape the pursuit of her father. For 10 points each, name the sorceress who gave her lover some herbs to help him defeat a sleepless dragon.
Medea.
In addition to slaying the sleepless dragon, this hero also had to sow a field with the teeth of a dragon after ploughing it with some far-breathing oxen. With the help of Medea, he was able to recover the golden fleece.
Jason.
This brother of Circe was the father of Medea and the king of Colchis, who demanded that Jason slay the dragon and plough the field. That is 80s. This character is described as having a crucifixion in his face. This man is told that before he dies he will see 2 hearses and that only hemp can kill him. This man, who threw away his pipe because of its inability to soothe him, hires the sinister Fedala and his men to supplement his crew. After Stubbs leaves a little boy out in the sea, this character begins to look after the crazed Pip. During a fight about leaking oil casks, this man points a musket at his first mate, Starbuck.
Captain Ahab.
Correct.
Captain's name.
This man wrote about a Soweto criminal who kidnaps a baby in his only novel, Tsotsi. For 10 points each, name the South African author who also described Halley's growing cruelty towards his black servants Sam and Willie as his father's return from the hospital grows closer in Master Harold and the Boys.
Oh, just go for it. I have no idea.
In this play by Athol Fugard, the light-skinned Morris agrees to pass himself off as white for an upcoming visit by his dark-skinned brother Zachariah's white pen pal, but her visit is cancelled and the brothers fight.
No, I don't know.
The letter.
That is the blood knot. In Master Harold and the Boys, Halley fondly remembers one of these objects Sam had made for him so that he'd have something to look up to. A novel by Khaled Hosseini includes a contest to sever the strings of these.
Kite?
Yeah, that sounds more like a kite.
Kite.
Yes.
Good job.
Oh, yeah.
Starting. Along with heavy use of machinery, this idea was blamed for the proletarians losing all individual character of their work in the Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx goes on to differentiate between the social type of this concept and the destructive technical type. Adam Smith, in the first chapter of his Wealth of Nations, describes this concept with the example of a pin factory. One book describes the anomic and forced forms of this
Specialization.
No, this five. This concept and a high complexity of this is closely associated with an advanced society. For 10 points, name this concept examined by Emil Durkheim in Society. No, that's division of labour. One man associated with this group depicted the construction of an underground tunnel between a road in his painting Work. A man wearing a crown and holding a lantern knocks at a door with no hat.
The pre-Raphaelites.
Yes.
Good job.
Kingsford's group.
The suppression of an 1876 rebellion against the Ottoman Empire led one politician to call for the end of Britain's special relationship with Turkey. For 10 points each, name that politician who began the first of his 4 terms as Prime Minister in 1868.
Gladstone.
Gladstone. Gladstone.
Gladstone used this phrase to refer to what the Ottoman army was doing to the rebels in a namesake country.
Did he say genocide?
Come on.
The genocide?
No, it was the Bulgarian horrors. As a result of the Bulgarian horrors, the British government refused to help the Ottomans in the Russo-Turkish War that broke out in 1877. That war ended the following year with this treaty, which so humiliated the Ottomans that it had to be revised at the Congress of Berlin.
Treaty of St. Petersburg.
There's the Treaty of San Stefano. In one section, this work's author describes his inability to imagine the differences between a kiliogon and a myriagon to illustrate the difference between imagination and understanding. In its second section, the author notes that the properties of a piece of wax can change, suggesting that wax is not known not by the senses but by the mind alone. The sixth of these distinguishes Ray's...
Meditations of Philosophy?
Correct. Members of this musical movement include the composer of In the Sea and Rainbow in Curved Air, Terry Riley. For 10 points each, name this movement begun in the 1960s that focuses on the repetition of phrases and motifs.
Pass.
That's minimalism. One of the best-known minimalist composers is this man, who composed the score to the film Koyanis Katsi and composed the Plutonian Ode Symphony. He also wrote the long opera Einstein on the Beach. This other minimalist composer is known for playing 2 tapes of the same sound at different tempos, a technique known as phasing. His major works include Come Out and Different Trains.
John Cage?
No, it's someone who sounds utterly without worth, Steve Reich. Next, starter. In this work, a retired soldier's daughter, Masha, is loved by the schoolteacher Medvedenko, but consults the doctor Dawn for advice about her love for a writer. In this work, the aspiring actress Nina performs in a play...
The Seagull?
Correct. Some members of this phylum have still projections called setae to help them move, and the clitellum of certain members of this phylum plays a role in their reproduction. For 10 points each, name this phylum of segmented worms that includes leeches and earthworms. Answer, please.
Annelidae?
Yes. Organisms in this other phylum of flatworms lack a central body cavity. Members of this phylum include tapeworms and planarians.
Nematodes?
No, that is platyhelminthes. This other invertebrate phylum contains gastropods such as snails and cephalopods such as octopuses.
What?
Yeah.